Hi, I'm Davey. I'm awesome. Welcome to Dave's Awesome Stories, where I tell funny stories from my past or go on a rant in an effort to make you laugh. This week it's more of a rant. I couldn't help but think about it this week, how when I was growing up in the late 80s, early 90s, thinking I was going to encounter certain things that I really haven't encountered. Pretty much at all. I'm going to go through a few of those things. Like one thing I've talked about before, but I'm going to go more in depth too. When I was a kid, I really thought that when I got older, I was going to have to really watch out for quicksand. Seriously, quicksand was like an action movie staple in the late 80s, early 90s. Pretty much every movie where there was a hero, you were going to encounter quicksand. And I really thought that growing up, I was going to have to deal with it. I've never encountered quicksand. And you would figure I would, because whether it was the part of my childhood where I was in Southern California or here in Northern Nevada, I've always been around desert. Lots of sand, dirt, all over the place. I've never once come across any quicksand. Not once. It's crazy. I've encountered mud. I've gotten some mud that I went, wow, that's pretty deep because it covered my whole foot. And then I had a muddy foot. I had to walk home with mud all over my shoe and in my shoe, in my sock, and on the cuff of my pant leg, sticking to and slapping against my shin over and over as I'm walking. And of course, never happening when I was anywhere near somewhere where I could clean that off or go home and change. So I'd have to sit there for hours with one muddy foot. But I've never encountered quicksand. And I decided to look it up. But it made me wonder, like, do I just not live where quicksand happens? I'm in the desert, there's a lot of dirt, but there's not a whole lot of moisture. Does it happen in tropical areas? Are people in Hawaii constantly drowning in dirt? Turns out, no, they're not. Turns out, quicksand deaths are extremely rare and never anything like what we saw. It's never people getting fully submerged in sand and basically drowning in dirt. No, the few times, which, again, few times that people die from quicksand, it's not the quicksand itself that killed them. Quicksand apparently mostly happens around an ocean, a lake, or a river. And sometimes when people are completely alone and nobody to help them get out of this quicksand at an ocean, they get stuck and then the tide comes in and they drown. But again, this is rare. Because apparently most time that you encounter quicksand, you can slowly just walk out of the quicksand. The other way that people die is apparently about 5 or 6 years ago, somebody died. They got stuck in it so long that with nobody around to help them, they sat there for a few days and died of dehydration. Sounds like it sucks, but not one person being fully submerged in quicksand. So basically, if you're going to go to a beach or a lake or a river, just don't go alone, and you should be fine. Unless both of you are dumb enough to get stuck in the quicksand. And in that case, I feel like, well, progress. So after looking this up, I had to look at my wife and tell her, sorry, honey, but it looks like I'm never going to be that hero who cuts a vine branch off and dives down into the quicksand to save my lady love. Good. I thought it was every girl's dream to be saved by their man. You know what? Save me the way that you normally do. Like, when I come home and I feel like I'm starving and you've got a nice dinner ready. I can do that. Another thing, though, I remember thinking another annoying thing I was going to have to deal with, because we saw this again everywhere, not just in movies, mostly TV shows. There was always an episode where you had to avoid the timeshare salesman. I've never even been offered a timeshare. I don't want one, but I'm going to say I'm a little offended. What's wrong with me? You think I can't afford a timeshare? I mean, I can't, but you don't know that. Seriously, though. I remember thinking that when I got older, I was going to have to be fighting off timeshare salesmen with sticks. Because they made it seem like that. Like every other week, I was going to have some timeshare salesman offering me a clock radio if I would just listen to his pitch. And then he was going to be so convincing that I wasn't going to be able to say no. And honestly, that's another thing that offends me is, I dare you. Because I've had plenty of people try to sell me dumb crap. Had plenty of friends that are into some pyramid scheme with some life-saving thing that they could sell me, like knives and vacation trips, and I've looked at every single one of them and said, no thanks. Never even gotten one of those things in the mail that says, hey, we're offering a timeshare thing here. Nobody wants to offer me a timeshare. I guess I'm glad about that, because I don't want you to offer me a timeshare. Because even as a kid, I'm looking at it thinking, why would I want to invest in a home that I can't live in, but can go to just once a year? That just sounds like the dumbest thing ever. Who wants to literally take their vacation the same place every freaking year? Because ultimately, if I wanted to go back to some place that often, I would just move there. Which is still how I feel. Don't get me wrong, I understand there are places that are great. I would love to go to like Key West someday. Or Costa Rica. But I imagine if I went to Japan enough, I'd be like, you know what? Let's go to Italy. And then, of course, in these things, it's always crappy timeshares. I've only known one or two people who've had a timeshare and never even heard of somebody who was offered a timeshare in some place like Backwood, Kansas. It's usually a nice spot. But again, if you're young and you're worrying about this, you're about to get into the adult age, let me ease your mind. Nobody wants to sell you a timeshare. Nobody. You kind of have to actually go to them to get a timeshare. And if you're that dumb, you deserve to have a timeshare in Kansas. The last one that growing up I really thought I was going to have to deal with as I got older, not even being an adult, but just teenage years, and I honestly have not dealt with. I honestly thought that growing up, I was going to have a huge problem with people trying to offer and pressure me to do drugs. Turns out the DARE program was full of crap. Duh! Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I've never been offered drugs. I'm gonna say this. No one's ever offered me, like, heavy stuff. I've had people who didn't know me that well say something like, hey, we're gonna go smoke some weed. Did you want to join us? Or just simply, so, you smoke weed? But I've never ever had somebody really pressure me. In all these situations, I just looked at them and said, nah, that was it. Turns out every time I told somebody, no, I don't want to smoke weed, they just simply respected my decision. Which irritates me because all those activity books, all those PSA videos I had to watch, all those even tests I had to do at the end of them, and assemblies, for nothing. Because as it turns out, the only real pressure is the pressure you put on yourself. The pressure of not wanting to look stupid. But ultimately, not one time did anybody ever say to me, come on, man, everyone's doing it. Except for, like, I had a friend say that to me, and they were clearly joking. And then he went and smoked pot, and I sat there and just watched television. No one ever looked at me and said, all the cool kids are doing it. Because everybody who knows me knows, doesn't matter, I'm not one of the cool kids. Never once did I tell somebody, no thank you, I don't want to join you to smoke pot, and they replied, don't be a dweeb. Because I would have looked at him and said, I thought you told me to be myself. Never once. And as far as like real drugs, like the stuff that comes in powders and stuff, nobody has ever even offered those. Not one time has somebody been like, hey, we're going to go snort. You want to come with us? Never. From what I understand, you just kind of get into that and meet people that also like to do that. But if you say no thanks, they all generally just respect your decision. Come to think of it, the only time I've really been pressured to do drugs, was somebody telling me, hey, you really need to calm down. Just take the damn Xanax. And the thing, again, is it's never been a stranger. It was never some random person just standing on the sidewalk going, hey, want to do drugs? Hey, you. Drugs? Drugs. Illegal drugs for anybody who wants them. Drugs. Closest I've had to a situation like that wasn't offering me drugs. I was living in California, and I was walking to a library, and somebody stopped me, but they didn't offer. They just went, hey man, do you by chance have any weed you could sell me? This was the only time I was encountered for anything like this by a random stranger. And I just kind of looked at him like, no. Do I look like somebody who has weed to sell you? Why would you just walk up to somebody random and ask that? What the hell is the matter with you? Are you just hoping to get arrested? Need a place to stay? Because I'm sorry, no, I don't have any weed for you to get high on. The best I can do for you is I've got some Cool Whip at home. Then again, it's in a tub, so that's really not going to help you. And then he came by and we had some pie. That's one of the reasons that I think the DARE program was such a piece of crap. Because not only did it lie to kids, giving them false expectations, trying to make them believe that one time they smoke pot, they're going to have a heart attack and die, but I will say this, they kind of helped instruct kids on how to get drugs rather than avoid them. Which is why it was funny. A couple years ago, I'm walking into a Little Caesars, and somebody is outside trying to get petitions to restart the DARE program, but made it clear. So we're bringing it back, but we're not bringing it back the same way. In the 90s, we were focused on drugs. Now we're going to be focused on teen suicide. And I looked right at her and said, well, with the bang-up job you guys did on drugs, I'm going to say no, not going to sign your petition because I really don't want a bunch of teenagers dying all of a sudden. So there you have it. That's my story of it this week. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, make sure to hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell so you get notifications when I post videos. And leave a comment I can respond to in my next comment corner. Give me some other things that you thought were going to be a problem when you got older. Love you guys.